What's up? My name is Alex. I'm your daily code mentor. Today I talk to you about something that is very dear to my heart, which is the tech entrepreneur path. So, if you're interested in becoming a tech entrepreneur, these are the skills you're gonna need, and I'm also gonna mention a few strategies and a few lessons along the way. So, I have to qualify myself because this may be the first video you ever see of me. But what you can tell is that I'm a pretty hardcore guy. I've been working with the internet for quite a while, and I've been making it working for myself. Right now, I'm in New Jersey. Next week, I'll be in Miami. The week after, I'll be in San Francisco. Then I'll be in Buenos Aires. I'm completely location independent. I can work at my own leisure and my own time, and I can show you how to do that as well. However, at this point, what I want to show you are the tools and the strategies that I use on a daily basis. So I've been developing for many years. I've worked so much. I lost all my hair basically. I'm bald. I'm afraid to show myself on camera because I'm that bald. And I'm kidding. It's mostly because it's impractical. And I'm also a top-rated code mentor. I have 100 plus 5-star reviews. Every person I work with is very happy to work with me. And so let's get right into it. So there's three sides to the tech entrepreneur equation. One side is the back end, the other side is making the back end talk to the front end, and the first side is the front end. Okay, so I'm gonna be covering all of these points. The first set of skills you need when you build the back end are building APIs, which I have a course on. So you want to be building APIs, which is basically an API is just a server that aggregates requests, or rather URLs, or rather endpoints, which are the combination between a method, a HTTP method, and a URL. So you need to know your APIs. Why? Because in 2019, everything is basically an API. Everything is basically an API. If you think about a backend, everything is built in a microservice-oriented fashion. Any service that is not built that way is just not as fast. Like you can't be as fast in building new features. You can't be as effective in managing it. So it's just meant like APIs in a microservice fashion are just meant to be the most effective approach. It just is what it is, especially because at this point authentication is a known factor. Authentication is such a known factor that you can literally pay companies to provide it. So it's not a limiting factor at all. And as such, APIs are built as microservices. So if you're interested in going deeper in APIs, you can check out my course. My next upcoming course is going to be on databases, which is the second point, which I highly recommend you get familiar with, especially if you're going to use Node.js and Mongoose. It's a very straightforward process. I thoroughly enjoy teaching it, and at the same time, it's kind of fun to build as well. So you got APIs, you got databases. The third thing that I've noticed pops up all the time is caching. So the reason why that pops up is because in a way you're bound to fuck up your API structure, your API architecture. So if you are bound to make a mistake, you have to compensate for slow queries. Of course, you're going to learn how to optimize them with experience. But something you want to get into is the idea of having caches, which you can build in three ways. One way is by using Redis, which is the proper way. The second way is just by using a file. So you just read the file, you store the file locally, and then you send back the file. And the third approach will be through Cloudflare. The approach through Cloudflare is the most rapid one. It's the most honestly, it's the most effective one. Although it's the one that gives the least results back in the long term. It's also the fastest one to implement, so you definitely want to check that out. I'll probably release a video on my caching rules. These have been taught to me by my JD master, which I'm not gonna disclose, but it's a person I'm grateful for. So I'll definitely be happy to share that. And the last thing you wanna absolutely nail when it comes to backend are file upload and login. And that's because you're gonna be building this stuff so freaking often. Okay, you're gonna be building file upload after file upload after file upload. Even if you use AWS or you use something else, which you will. Even if you use a third-party API, you still need to store your private keys on your own server. So you need to get used to this idea of private keys in your own server, a client that locally authenticates and then uploads the file to the server, and then the server uploads to the proper server. This kind of pattern is so common, you just gotta get used to it. The other side is login, Why do I mention that? Passport.js. Passport.js you're gonna have to learn. That's probably my third course upcoming. And honestly, the reason why I'm not building a course right now on this is because I'm actually building a course on something else that I'll mention later. Now, the electives, which are basically your extra skills. You want an extra point, you want extra skills. In my opinion, you don't need these, okay? You really don't need them. You can pay somebody $100 or $500 to basically get the job done when you need it. You can just come on Code Mentor, talk to me, talk to other experts, and just get it done. Okay, but if you don't know APIs, you don't know database, you don't know caches, you don't know file uploads, well, on one end, I can teach you all, each of them on a separate session. Okay, so I can empower you with these skills. However, you're gonna need to learn them eventually. So that's why I actually offer an intensive course that lasts one day, costs $1,000, so $997. And in that one day, I teach you all of these foundational skills so that you are able to get up and running. Okay, so as I said, the electives are DNS. DNS means where you put your website. How do you get your website to show? It's very annoying stuff. I hope one day we're gonna basically fix it or make it better. But it just comes with the territory because the internet is kind of old at this point. Continuous integration, continuous delivery is such a deep topic that you may as well just pay somebody to figure out the CI/CD configuration for you instead of having to do the trial and error or study it, because it's a very deep topic. So you just want to be effective with your time. And last one is the networking. You want to learn how to build networks and all that stuff. In my opinion, you shouldn't. Just use a Roku. Just use platforms as a service, man. Why would you want to waste your time building servers and managing stuff? Why would you make your life harder? That's honestly my question to you. Don't. You know, you want to learn it as a hobby, do it. You want to be effective, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to print that paper. Don't learn networking, man. Just pay somebody if you ever need it. Now, unless you're building a startup on it, I guess. That would be the counter. So the next step, this is something from my great mentor, one of my great teachers. He says you have to learn and then you have to integrate, which is the idea that when you learn, you have an explicit, conscious understanding of what you're doing. But your next step is to integrate that skill so that you don't think about it again. It's what you will call being, not doing. So you're not doing the skill. You're not building backends for the sake of building APIs and database. You're just building your microservices because you want to build your company. Okay? So that's why for me, at this point, that I'm 7 years deep in programming, I'm 2.5 years deep in JavaScript, full stack JavaScript. At this point, I only use Strapi.io. Strapi.io is basically a drag and drop interface that allows me to build my APIs in literally 10 seconds. I just open up the drag and drop interface. I define the content type and how it looks, which basically equates to the database schema. And then I get the endpoints built. Like, it's so easy, so fast. Why would I want to rebuild this stuff all the time? Why would I want to always have a boilerplate to rebuild this stuff? I'm not going to do that at all. Why? Because I know exactly how to do that. I have that skill, but now that I have it, I can do without. Okay? Also, you want to be effective. So this is why this is going to be my next course. Strapi.io at this point is a very obscure application. I actually expect this to become the mainstream application for full stack JavaScript development. Every single previous WordPress developer that is familiar with WordPress will love Strapi.io because they basically, Strapi.io to me is the next step. Unless WordPress does something dramatical, which I'll let you know if that happens. But if that doesn't happen, Strapi.io is my solid bet for the future. So I would extremely recommend you learning it. I'm going to have a course on it. I want you to comment right now if you want a discount on it. And basically, it's going to revolutionize the way you build your applications. Because as fast as you think of your content types, you're going to be able to get API endpoints that correspond to them. So you're going to be able to have your get, your post, your put, your delete, and that's going to be just amazing. So be on the lookout for that. Most likely there's going to be a link in the description. Just jump on that link, just check it out. Do yourself a favor, check it out right now while it's fresh on your mind. Just check out this Strapi.io course. It's going to be extremely affordable and it will save you a lot of time. I personally have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars with the companies that I work with Because I use this tool. Because how in the world can a single man develop 70 endpoints that all do different things and are all automated? You just can't. Okay, you just do it with a tool that is extremely effective. So if you're an entrepreneur, this is the tool you're looking for. This was the shortcut you were looking for from this video. So check that link out immediately. Okay, now the other side of the equation is the front end, right? The front end is what the user sees, is what we would call the client, is what we send back from the server down to the user. Okay, but there's a middle step. There's a middle skill, rather. You need to be able to connect your backend to your front end. And there's two pivotal skills to this. The first skill is called Postman. And Postman is just a tool. It's a headless API tool that basically, where headless just means that it doesn't render the browser requests. It just makes browser requests. It just makes requests to your server, and then it prints out the result. So when you're building your APIs, you want to use Postman. For example, in my API building course, which to me is the best course available on the market, and it's also extremely value packed, it's super fast, super high value packed. Every person who took it loved it, so check that out, it's in the description as well. The first thing we do is we build a backend, and then we use Postman to debug it, because we don't want to spend hours building a front end and figuring out if the connection is right, if the policies are correct, if the API is there, etc., etc. No, you just build the backend and you put it on your terminal, and then you talk to it through Postman. So my ideal setup, which I show in the course, is very basic. Is code editor, which tells the server what to do, is terminal, so that the server tells us what's going on, and then Postman, so that you can talk to the server. If you do that, you made your life so much easier, because the problem I've noticed is programming has to do with dealing with overwhelm of information. The world is too complicated, there's too much information. So having what I call the black box thinking allows you to not get lost in the details, okay? And when you're coding a backend, you don't want to get lost in the details. You just want to have that high level perspective, and then you want to have strategic logs. You want to use console.log in a very strategic way, which I teach in any course you take with me, any lesson you take with me, I teach that, because it's something that I've gained through trial and error and experience. So use your strategic logs, and that way you always know what's going on. So when you're done doing Postman, because you're working only on the backend initially, because that way you're focused only on the backend, then you take your backend for granted. You literally assume that you can't change it anymore, and you go on the front end. So the second skill is AJAX, which you can do through jQuery AJAX, through Fetch, or through Axios. Personally, I highly recommend Axios as a tool. If you use React, Vue, etc., or Node.js, I highly recommend Axios. At this point, I never use Fetch. Why? It's just it hasn't clicked for me yet. I would rather use Axios for now. And the other one that I love is jQuery.ajax, because again, I was a WordPress developer for many years, so very familiar with jQuery, and I still think it's an amazing library, very useful library if you're building on the front end. So now we get to the front end. The skills in the front end are going to be a little odd, but this is stuff that actually works. So if you're interested in getting results, if you're interested in getting real results with your coding, this is what you should learn. If you're interested in knowing everything, then just keep doing what you were doing, okay? Just keep doing what you were doing. I went to university, actually took computer science. I have a bachelor in it, and I think it's amazing. However, I also recognize that one thing is being able to explain why things work at a deep level, and another thing is actually being effective. And being effective is what I'm teaching right now. So if you want to be effective, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to make it rain, you want to actually get your results, do what I'm telling you now, okay? So the first skill is talking to APIs. As I said, you want to get your jQuery, your Axios, your Fetch. You gotta be extremely proficient at that. Then you want to be thinking in components, which is the idea that when you see a block of code or a design, you're able to separate it conceptually. So for example, into a navbar, into a body, and then the body maybe as a list, maybe as a card, maybe as a header, etc., so that you can understand how you will code it up from a high level perspective. This is something that I teach in my React lessons. So if you ever take a lesson with me in React and we do a project together, that's basically what we go over. and that's something that I teach one-on-one live. So if you're interested in that, you can definitely message me or reach out to me on Code Mentor. Now, the other skill that is pivotal, it's like foundational skill, and it's the reason why many people think they need to learn more basics on JavaScript, when the truth is there's very few things you need to know about JavaScript to be effective, but this one is the one you need. And the one you need is lists and object manipulations, where list is actually the wrong term. I'm going to change it in real time. List, with list, that means array, okay? You want to be able to manipulate arrays, and you want to be able to manipulate objects. You need to have an extreme clear understanding that an array is a list of stuff, and that an object is just basically a dictionary with keys and values. It's just an aggregate of keys and values. Okay? So knowing that, you need to be able to map out the front end, how it looks, with the data structure. So every list in the world, and almost anything can be processed down to a list, by the way, but a list is an array. So when you see a bunch of cards, you go to Airbnb and you see all of those offers, that's an array. It's 100% an array, okay? How do you do that? With .map. How do you do that? With for each. How do you get a single one? With filter or with reduce. And then how do you add even more superpowers? With Lodash. How do you go from having an array to with different keys to mapping it to an object and then mapping over the object through their keys? That this more advanced stuff that happens a lot if you do data visualization, or if you work with particular types of configurations, such as having multiple microservices that describe the same object, so you have to merge the various objects. This stuff will be extremely helpful. This is something that I'm covering on a side course that I'll probably throw in if you do a lesson with me. I'll literally gift it to you. It's a Flexbox masterclass in building stuff with CSS. So it's because I don't think there's enough of a market to sell that. But let me know if you agree, if you think otherwise. If you would like to purchase, let me know. But it's basically a masterclass in how to build stuff that looks great with Flexbox. And so the first thing I do in that course is I show you how I see every website. So I go over Facebook, I go over Airbnb. I think I go over another one, I don't remember. But I go over websites to show you what I see, so that you can see what I see, so that I can teach you how to be effective. Okay? The last skill you need in the front end is definitely file upload and login. Why? Because it's gonna happen so often. File upload, file upload, file upload, file upload. Yes, there are npm packages that you can use. You still have to customize them. So just get used to that. And the other one is login. Why do I mention login? Because you're gonna have to build a form. You're gonna have to manage the state for the form. You're gonna have to submit it. That happens all the time, to the point where at this point, I think I already released a YouTube video on this. It's called the React Redux login form with Strapi.io. You should check that out. It's a very simple thing. It's a very simple 15-minute video that shows you the high level of how to get that done. And you'll see that every time you build a form, it's basically the same. So you want to get used to building forms, to the point where I may actually do some sort of elective course on it. That said, the electives are actually very controversial for front end, and they are HTML and CSS. In my opinion, HTML and CSS are the most overrated skills in development. Okay? You don't need to learn CSS. You don't need to learn HTML. You do not need to learn these skills. Why? Because there's millions of people that know them. Millions of people have this skill. They are willing to work for a way lower wage than the wage that a front end with React or Vue or Angular experience would work for. So in my opinion, you should literally not study them. You should literally avoid them. Just use component libraries. That's why in my effective Node.js and my effective full stack development course, I don't teach HTML and CSS, because there's no reason. You can just build whatever you want, you pay a designer to design it better, and then you pay an HTML guy to build it for you, okay? The cost of the HTML guy is going to be way lower than the cost of building the application, because building the application is going to be in the thousands of tens of thousands of dollars. Building the HTML will be in the hundreds of dollars. Uppercase will be $2,000. worst case, like if you have a very complex application, you're gonna pay $2,000 to make it look different. Okay, if you have a very complex application and you build it without React, or you have a developer build it, they're gonna charge you hundreds of thousands of dollars, because that's the value of the skill right now compared to HTML CSS. So in my opinion, if you want to be effective, do what I just told you. Just learn the stuff that actually works, the stuff that actually is high paid, the stuff that is actually crucial, the stuff that gives you power to make decisions, and then leave everything else to somebody else. You know, you can just learn your skill and then take your money and pay somebody else to do HTML and CSS. There's no reason for you to do that. Now, I'm gonna leave you with a bunch of homeworks or something to think over. And it's where do you go from there? Like, you get the skill, okay, so how do you actually cultivate the skill? You cultivate it by building projects. There is no one that I've ever met that was able to build a skill without having projects. This is building stuff, like being an entrepreneur and being in technology means building things. So just start building. The first two tasks that I always recommend are a simple form that turns into a list, which most people call it the to-do list. You can do a to-do or a blog. They're basically the same thing. It's just a form that increases the contents of an array that contains objects, and then you display the objects through array.map. So just do that. Just do a blog or a to-do. I also do the gratitude, which is just a variation. It's just the 3 things I'm grateful for a day. I love it. And build it in the front end, and then build it as a full stack project, or even build it as an API project. Build it as an API project, which is something we do in my course, in my API course. Then build it in the front end, which is something that we'll definitely cover in the future, and then connect the two, right? So that way you have 3 projects for one, right? And then build an e-commerce. Why don't you build a one-page e-commerce where you feature one product and you allow people to sell it? It may actually be extremely useful for Instagram people. So it may actually be a business opportunity there as well. So do these 2. Why do I want you to do these 2? The first one is the core. It covers basically everything. So it's actually an amazing project to do. The second one is a little more niche, and it forces you to think about more complicated inventory management, more complicated data types, and it also forces you to use an external API, such as Stripe, such as Ethereum, if you want to do it in a blockchain-focused approach. So it's awesome. And then more electives, more skills that you may look into are going to be maps, if you want to work with maps, then artificial intelligence, and I'm not sure what file means. We're going to ignore that. So maps and artificial intelligence, such as audio processing, video processing, document mining, sentiment analysis, all of this stuff you can do as well. So in conclusion, I showed you the skills that you actually need to be extremely effective. My advice for you, if you are unsure at this point, is just get on a call with me. I'm going to build your workout plan for the next month or 2, and I'm gonna show you all the skills you actually need based on your goal, because I've seen it all at this point. I know that just tell me what you want, I'll tell you how to get it in terms of building, and so that you can focus on getting it done, and then you can focus on selling it. So if you want to build it, just call me. I can help you in building anything. That said, let's get you focused, let's get you building stuff, let's get you going. Jump on a call right now if you have any more doubts, or check out my courses if you know exactly what you need. And that said, I'm Alex, your code mentor, and I wish you an amazing